Now I'm going to just talk for a few minutes just to kind of set the scene a little bit for the rest of the day. And both myself and Lord Willits, who follows, have got quite a few charts, so brace yourselves. And the first few are slightly depressing, but fear not, we'll get to the good stuff. So where are we overall? So this is a chart that shows the employment rate, economic inactivity rate, and unemployment rate over time. And what you can see once we get past the pandemic is the employment rate is pretty flat. We're about 75%. Now, caveats: the data goes a bit ropey, but it's probably broadly about right. And you might think, oh well, that's not bad given we've gone through a pandemic and the economy's been flat. I'll remind you that the government elected 2 years ago is committed to an 80% employment rate. That chart is not on track to reach 80%. I think it would be an understatement to say. So there's a lot to do. The other thing I'll make the point on this chart is, remember, like post-pandemic, we had a lot of discussions about, oh my goodness, economic inactivity, it's really going up. We've got to do something about that. And it has, and we do have to do something about it. But what you can see more recently is economic inactivity's dipped back down a bit and unemployment's gone up. Now, this is actually a good thing in a sense that more people are looking for jobs as opposed to not looking for jobs. But it is a different challenge to what we thought we had in the immediate aftermath of the pandemic. That said, economic inactivity is there's still lots of people in that group who say they want a job and who are not getting the help to find a job and consequently are not getting a job. And that's something we need to tackle and we'll look at today. And the point about rising unemployment is kind of illustrated a little bit here. You can see the vacancies line sort of going down a bit over time. And you can see the number of people out of work but saying they want a job going up. This is the labour market getting tougher for people. More people want jobs. There are fewer jobs around. Two more depressing charts, then I promise that's it. And this gives a picture underneath those headlines. So look at where those jobs are growing and where they're shrinking. The growth is predominantly in public sector roles, in health and education and things like that. And the sectors that are struggling and shrinking most are retail and hospitality. This links back to Guy's point about young people and first jobs and things like that. Oftentimes is in retail and hospitality. That looks a bit tricky. And hence we've got this chart going up. So this figure is the number of young people not in employment or full-time education. So this is why the number is higher than the million that Guy spoke about and that's commonly quoted, because you've got some of those young people, probably about 300,000, who are in part-time education. But this has gone up a lot since 2020, since the pandemic, and is a major problem for all the reasons that Guy said. Now, this is my new favorite chart. I assume you've all got favorite charts. We'll have a vote later. So this shows the employment rates in different cities and parts of the UK. So the employment rate is on the x-axis there. The size of the bubble is the size of the population of that area. And you can see surprisingly few places are above 80%. So well done, Milton Keynes, Bristol, Gloucester, Worthing and Edinburgh. And, well, we've got some work to do elsewhere, given economies and given circumstances and given a whole bunch of other stuff. But again, it kind of shows the dispersion that we've got across the country. Those aggregate figures look very different depending on where you live. And then, oh, hang on, sorry, I'll put that back, Ben. I can see people in the front row. It hadn't quite zoomed in on that chart. This is the photo. This is the Instagram moment. Right, have we all got it? Excellent. So, but we know that there's lots of technological change going on, and to an extent, 'twas ever thus. But we've got a breakout session later talking about AI, and that is a really big shift that we're just in the foothills of. And I was kind of reflecting on, is that going to be a really big change, or are people overblowing it? And I think I came across this Douglas Adams quote. I don't know how many of you know Douglas Adams, who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is an excellent book. So he said, anything that's present when you're born feels normal and natural. So like the TV and the video and CDs and stuff are perfectly natural. Anything that's invented between when you're 15 and 35 is exciting and revolutionary. The internet was really exciting when that came on. anything invented after 35 seems unnatural or disruptive. And I think we can agree AI is witchcraft, can't we? So, so I think it's worth us all of it. I'm looking at the trying to guesstimate the age distributions in this room, and I'm not going to put a graph up of that, fear not. But I think it's worth us reflecting on this a little bit. And also, things like AI are really new and developing fast, and we don't know. It might be a damp squib in some places, it might be transformational elsewhere, or it might just change things a bit. So we don't know, but it's definitely a thing. So what are we going to do about all of this? And this is kind of where we get into today, I think, a little bit. That sets the scope, hopefully, or the scene for some of the challenges. What are we going to do about them? So there's a lot of stuff going on, isn't there? And I've kind of talked with various of you, both this morning and previously, about this. So you can't fit all the programs or changes on one slide, but things like Connect to Work, Work Well, Economic Inactivity Trailblazers. We are running Jobs Plus pilots with housing associations with the support of the DWP and Youth Futures Foundation. On skills, we've now got apprenticeship grants. We've got what's described as a pivot to young people and sort of changes in funding rates according to age and level and stuff like that. We've got trailblazers, we've got job guarantees, we've got changes to apprenticeships, we've got these things called foundation apprenticeships, which I'm going to maintain are not actually apprenticeships, even if they're a good idea. Stop calling everything apprenticeships, please. But all of these things, I think, are generally quite good and good ideas, but they don't think about the system as a whole or the person as a whole. These things feel like initiatives that are slightly splodged on to an existing system. And that's partly what Alan Milburn has been talking about, isn't it, in his interim reports. So we need to look at that system approach. And my starting point for that is only 1 out of 10 out of work disabled people get help to find work each year, even though 2 in 10 of them say they would like a job. So there's a massive support gap there. And Connect to Work doesn't bridge all of that gap, particularly when other things like the Work and Health Programme have now finished. We do a lot of that support that I talked about for NEETs. A lot of it's focused on the unemployed NEETs, those who are on unemployment-related benefits. But that's only 1 in 4 of them. A further 1 in 4 is on health-related benefits, and a further 1 in 2 is not on any benefits at all. Someone's got to go and find them, and someone's got to go and offer them something that kind of engages them and helps their long-term outcomes. And on apprenticeships, yeah, we kind of had some tweaks to try and pivot towards more apprenticeships for young people, but only 5% of 18 to 21-year-olds are on an apprenticeship. It's double that in Germany, and apprenticeships for young people have fallen by a third since 2017. So we need to do more. And then the thing that kind of always slightly flabbergasts me is that because of the way the Department of Education in England does funding, there's roughly about 25,000 young people, 16 to 18-year-olds, who are on college courses now that the college is not getting paid for, and the department has said, we are not going to pay you for it. And then we wonder why we've got 1 point, however many million NEETs. This is crazy. This is not joined up government. So lots of good stuff, but it's not a transformation. It's not the step change that we need to meet the ambitions that the government says it's got and that everyone in this room has got. So what we're going to talk about today is all of those challenges, but we're going to try and be slightly less depressing than I've been. And we're going to try and look at and share solutions, because there's lots of brilliant stuff going on. So we want to hear about it. We want to share it. We want to make connections so we can think, how can we do this elsewhere in the country too? And for me, that's about a joined up system, making those connections. It's about locally delivered and embedded services as well. It's about funding. That's, if anyone thinks that whoever the next chancellor is going to rock up with an extra few billion for employment and skills, it's kind of, see me afterwards, I've got a bridge to sell you. There's not a lot of extra money knocking around. Maybe there'll be some, but we also need to think about what we're doing with the funding we have got and how can we do more with it together. And then it's compulsory to put a picture of Andy Burnham on these sort of slides. And he's speaking at an Institute of Technology event there as well, so he's very apropos. But we are going to have a different Prime Minister. Now, we've had quite a few different Prime Ministers in recent years, haven't we? And changing Prime Minister doesn't change the circumstances that we face as a country. What changes things is what people do not who the person is. So I think there's not going to be like a magic wand moment on July the 18th or whatever it is, but I think it's what do we do to make the difference? And that's where everyone in this room has got part of the answer. Lots of brilliant stuff going on. And how can we scale that up? How can we get the policy enablers to make it easier? Because a lot of the good stuff that happens despite the system rather than because of it. How do we empower local leaders? And how do we make sure that employers who are finding it tough in a tough economy for like the last 15 years, frankly, have the support that they need to give the young people the opportunities to do the changes to ways of work that we need to widen employment opportunities. If you could solve all of that today, that would be cracking. So thank you for that. But I think there's lots of stuff going on today, and the convention is always about sharing experience, making connections. I hope you find it useful, and I hope that frames the day relatively well for everyone. You'll be delighted to know I have no more charts and I have finished.